Hi there, I'm Rach the Realtor, here to give you the scoop on all things Kansas City. Today we are talking about the top 3 worst things about living in Kansas City. This is kind of a companion video to the last one that I did. That was the top 5 best things about living in the KC metro area. And to be honest, I wanted to come up with 5 bad things so that they go hand in hand, but I really couldn't. And that's because I live in Kansas City and I love it here. There are bad things, and we are going to talk about the top 3 worst parts about living in Kansas City today. But I couldn't come up with 2 more that just were generalizations that are bad experiences for everyone that lives in the KC metro, because it's a pretty awesome place to live. I would love to chat with you more about living in Kansas City, so go ahead and shoot me an email, send me a text, and I can't wait to touch base with you. But for now, we'll get to the top 3 worst things about living in Kansas City. Okay, here we go. Number 3, the third worst thing about living in Kansas City, the month of February. I'm just giving it to one specific month, and there are a few reasons for that. The first is one of the top 5 best things about living in Kansas City that I talked about in the other video is the weather. We do get all 4 seasons, and that's one of the wonderful things about living in the metro. Most of the seasons, kind of when they leave, it's just the right amount of time. Like, at the end of fall, you're like, all right, that was really nice. I'm ready for some snow just in time for Christmas. By the end of summer, you're like, okay, I'm ready for some cooler weather for some fall. Winter is the exception. So winter, the first snow usually happens like late November, early December, and it's seasonal, it's festive, it's fun. So by like New Year's, you're like, okay, I'm glad it's cold, it fits the holidays. January, you're like, okay, well, it's January, I expect it to be cold. But by the time you get to February, the NFL season is over. Baseball season has not yet begun. March Madness is still a month away on the horizon, and there's just not much going on in Kansas City. It's cold, it's still snowing, and by the end of February, you are just over it. So that's why my third worst thing about living in Kansas City goes specifically to the month of February, because there's just not much going on. Even in January, Kansas City has something called Kansas City Restaurant Week, and it's usually the last week of January, which just gives something fun, something different to do in January. In February, I really can't think of anything, unless the Chiefs happen to be in the Super Bowl. Then that takes care of the first week of February. But if they lose in the Super Bowl, then it makes the whole month of February that much worse. So the Royals go down to spring training towards the middle to end of February. That's kind of fun. But other than that, the month of February is just kind of gray, cold, rainy, snowy, and you are over it. So the third worst thing about living in Kansas City is the month of February. Okay, the second worst thing about living in Kansas City also goes hand in hand with one of the best things about living in Kansas City, which was drivability. So again, go click on that video, watch the top 5 best things about living in Kansas City, and then this one will make more sense, because the second worst thing about living in Kansas City is public transportation. So the other side of that is it's a super drivable city, but there is very little public transportation here. If you live in one of the suburbs, you absolutely have to have a car. There's just very few places where you can get around without a car and get to the places you need to go, work, grocery store, bank, all that good stuff. If you do happen to live in like downtown Kansas City, the River Market area, or like Crown Center Union Station area, there's a fun little thing called the Kansas City streetcar that was added pretty recently. It's free to use, but it just goes a straight line and maybe a couple of miles. It doesn't go very far. It drives on the car with streets, so it's not like it's any faster than a regular vehicle. But it is kind of nice, especially if you're going to like a concert at T-Mobile Arena. You could park somewhere that's easier to get in and out of the city and then hop on the streetcar, ride it to the concert. It's kind of fun if you want to go like out to dinner in the River Market and then go to drinks more downtown. You can hop on it. So I'm talking a lot about the streetcar because that's really the only public transportation Kansas City has. We do have a bus system, so you can use the bus system to get around, but it's not very robust and it does not go out to the far end of the metro. So if you live in like a further out north, south, east, or west suburb, you really can't use the bus system. So that's a bummer about Kansas City. That's the second worst thing about the Kansas City Metro, is it's really hard to live here without a vehicle. The good part is if you do have a vehicle, it's super drivable. The downside is you pretty much have to have one unless you live in a really specific area where things are walkable. Everything you need is, within a walking distance. Or if you use the streetcar. That's really fun, but like I said, it's not really used by most people as like their day-to-day commuter thing. It's more of like a special events thing. It's good for tourists. It's fun for a night, to get around to a few different parts of the city easily if you're just having a night out for fun. So the second worst thing about living in Kansas City is public transportation. Alrighty, number one, the top worst thing about living in Kansas City is the airport. Okay, can you tell that I like living in Kansas City? Because every bad thing I say something positive about it. And the positive thing about the airport, as it sits right now here, before the new one comes in, is it's really easy to get in to your flight. So if you've never been to the Kansas City airport, it's very dated, and each gate, or maybe 10 gates, all have their own security area. So it's not like you go through one big security area to get to all the gates in the airport. So that's the good part, is rarely do you have to wait in a line because everyone is going to different security check-ins. So that's the positive of it, is you can really get out of your car at the airport and be on your plane in under 30 minutes. So there's lots of other things that are bad about that though. Number one is, this is not an airport where you're like, ooh, can't wait to go have pre-flight cocktails and have a nice meal. No. The restaurant selections are slim. They're few and far between because you're grouped in with 10 other gates. Usually there's one, maybe two restaurants, a little Starbucks, a mini Starbucks, and a snack area with magazines and stuff. And that's it. And the restaurants are not well-known chain restaurants. A lot of airports have the airport Chili's or something like that. No, these are, I'm just going to say they're not the best restaurants that you're going to taste on your travels, hopefully. So that's one big downside. The other big downside is for people that do have layovers in Kansas City. If they do, and again, I've heard a lot of flights don't lay over in Kansas City for this reason, but a lot of times you have to exit security at your gate and then go down. If you're in a gate that's grouped with other gates, you have to go through security again to get into your new gate. So that is really a bummer. And then the other thing, which people that live in the north part of Kansas City are going to argue with me on this. So I already know that, so just bring it on. It's the location. The Kansas City airport is a good 25 minutes from downtown Kansas City. The Kansas City Metro is really spread out. So if you live on the south side, on the west side, and some parts of the east side, it is a haul to get up to the airport, 45 minutes to an hour for a lot of people that live in the Kansas City Metro. It's not one of those airports where you can hop off the plane, pay a $5 Uber, and then be at your hotel in downtown. It's not. If you fly into Kansas City, most likely you're going to have at least a 25-minute drive to where you need to go. So that's kind of a bummer. I guess the good part about that is that they're building a new airport and there's plenty of room up there to do that. So if our airport was in downtown Kansas City, then I could see how it would be difficult to improve it very well. There is a little airport in downtown Kansas City called the Charles B. Wheeler Airport, and it's more for private planes, small planes, business flights, stuff like that. So if you fly into Kansas City on a typical passenger plane, you're going to fly into KCI, MCI, if you're booking a flight online, and you're going to land up north. You're going to walk out and go, why are the floors blue and sparkly? Am I in 1985? And then you're going to have a car ride to get where you need to go. So for me and for many Kansas Cityans, the worst thing about living in Kansas City is the airport. But like I said, they are building a new one. I think it's supposed to be done in 2022. I will believe that when I see it. So by then though, the worst thing about living in Kansas City will be mostly taken care of. It will still be way up north though. So If you travel a lot for work and you're thinking about moving to the metro, you might want to look at the North Kansas City suburbs. So I would love to help you with that. I am a licensed realtor in both Missouri and Kansas. So shoot me an email, shoot me a text, and subscribe so you can learn more about living in Kansas City here with Rach the Realtor.